Hey y'all, so today we're going to be diving back into chapter 10 in Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the section today is called The Man on the River. So again, we're dissecting the story La Llorona, and so far I have interpreted the river as the life force that motivates us. It's kind of like that. Just the energy, the motivation, the inspiration that animates us, and and you know, she mentions the word animus a lot in throughout this chapter, and so it reminded me, you know, I want to look up the official definition of animate, which is to bring to life, and I think that's very relevant here. That you know, when you are entangled with a narcissist, that's what gets broken, or like in the story La Llorona, polluted. You know, the river gets polluted, the river of motivation of that life force, and so that's what keeps us stuck and takes away our motivation and kind of can kind of lull us into a depression and feeling frozen and stuck. And so as part of, you know, the healing process, and after you've exited and you're ready to move forward with your life, we want to make sure that all of that pollution is taken away. And so now she's going into the symbolism of the man on the river. And if you remember in the story, this was La Llorona, her husband in the story, and so he was kind of a narcissistic character himself in the story, because he was very dismissive of her and the children, and he was very selfish with his own motives and looking for his own gain. And so I find it interesting, and we're going to go into this and read, and then we'll talk more, but she's kind of looking at this man, which she calls the Hildago, as corrupted. And I think that maybe we need to look into everything that term corrupted really means, because when I hear the word corrupt, I think of, you know, like someone with bad intentions, you know, like a liar, someone like that, who a manipulator, a narcissist. But in reality, I feel like looking at this man on the river as injured, since it's a part of our psyche, you know, it's symbolic of a part of our psyche that motivates us to action. I view it more like an injured man, or an injured part of our psyche. And so you know, maybe we should just take a closer look into that term corrupted, because I think that it can also probably mean that as well. So let's dive into the story and see what we can learn. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit of the opening here for us. It says, before we can understand what the man in the La Llorona story has done by polluting the river, we have to see how what he represents is meant to be a positive construct in a woman's psyche. By classical Jungian definition, animus is the soul force in women and is considered masculine. However, many women psychoanalysts, including myself, have, through personal observation, come to refute the classical view and to assert instead that the revivifying source in women is not masculine and alien to her, but feminine and familiar. And so, and I feel like, you know, when you have an interest in psychology and you're reading, you know, a lot about it, it seems like the theories, because these are all, that's really what it is. It's theories trying to understand life, human behavior, the mind, and how all of it works together. And so these theories, I think, morph and change over time. And I think that, you know, even different psychologists are going to, you know, form their own theories through their own work with people, with their clients and patients. So anytime I'm presenting this information to you, just take what resonates, you know, with you. And I'm never trying to present, you know, everything word for word is just absolute truth. And so just keep that in mind. Again, my motivation, or my intention, is to just get the wheels turning for you. And so then you can take that, you know, into your own ethos that helps to give you clarity and wisdom and that you can integrate into your own moral compass to motivate you for your own personal man on the river, and to help animate you to manifest a beautiful life for yourself. So that's my intention. And so she goes into talking about some symbolism, and masculine concepts and animus, and talks about dream images and things like that. And so then she says, animus can best be understood as a force that assists women in acting in their own behalves in the outer world. Animus helps a woman put forth her specific and feminine inner thoughts and feelings in concrete ways, emotionally, sexually, financially, creatively, and otherwise, rather than in a construct that patterns itself after standard masculine development in any culture. And so basically she says animus is an essential bridging man. So she talks about the male figures in women's dreams, and how it's kind of like, it says he is like a merchant of the soul, because remember, we're looking at the symbolism of the Hidalgo in the story La Llorona, and it's kind of like I feel like he's sort of the caretaker of the river, is my impression. So, within our psyche. And so she says, another way to understand this is to think of Wild Woman, the soul self, as the artist, and the animus as the arm of the artist. Wild Woman is the driver. The animus hustles up the vehicle. She makes the song. He scores it. She imagines. He offers advice. Without him, the play is created in one's imagination, but never written down and never performed. Without him, the stage may be filled to bursting, but the curtains never part and the marquee remains dark. So yes, again, defining the word animate means to bring to life. And it's just, I think this is kind of where, when you've been through narcissistic abuse, you wind up feeling frozen because that man on the river isn't operating properly. That whatever it is that can bring all of the ideas and thoughts that are flowing in that river of the life force out into reality, can, whatever that motivating force is represented by this man, there's an injury there. There's a problem, a pollution there. So she says, if we were to translate the healthy animus into Spanish metaphor, he would be el agrimensor, the surveyor. I'm working on it. Who knows the lay of the land, and with his compass and his thread measures the distance between 2 points. He defines the edges and establishes boundaries. Also call him el jugador, the gamesman, the one who studies and knows how to and where to place the marker to gain or to win. These are some of the most important aspects of a robust animus. So the animus travels the road between 2 territories and sometimes 3. Underworld, inner world, and outer world. All the woman's feelings and ideas are bundled up and carted across those spans in both directions by the animus, who has a feeling for all worlds. So this kind of reminds me a little bit of the sealskin, soulskin story, the spirit child, how he kind of goes between both worlds of ego and soul. So this is, to relate it to that, it sounds like the man on the river is the one who goes between your thoughts and actions. And then I think she's saying it goes both ways, so it would mean perceiving reality out here, actions maybe of others or something like that. I'm just brainstorming with you, into your own thoughts and your own perceptions about reality. So and then I'm going to summarize a little bit. She goes into talking a little bit more about the masculinity and the feminine forces within and aspects, how these qualities are assigned to concepts in psychology. And but she makes it a point. This is a really interesting section here, because she makes it a point to acknowledge that people may view these kind of concepts differently, and she just says not to get lost in so many words in your own perception so much as just trying to understand the meaning behind these theories. I think that's what she's trying to say. And so she says the key aspect to animus development is actual manifestation of inner thoughts, impulses, and ideas. So again, animus brings ideas to actions, you know. So it says, so living as we do in a world that requires both meditative and outward action, I find it very useful to utilize the concept of a masculine nature or animus in woman. In proper balance, animus acts as helper, helpmate, lover, brother, father, king. And it says there is a kingly aspect existent in the woman's psyche, a king who is in loving service to the wild nature, who is meant to work in a woman's behalf and for her well-being, governing what she assigns to him, ruling over whatever psychic lens she grants to him. So it just reminds me of that beautiful union, you know, that you can experience and see outwardly between a man and a woman, and their qualities of masculinity and femininity, that's hard to say, how they come together to be helpmates for one another and to support and uplift one another, you know, in the same efforts. And then you can internalize that within a person's psyche. And so again, I don't want to go too much into this because I feel like this is such a, I'm trying to get a grasp on it, the concept, but I feel like it could turn into a very extensive discussion, and I don't want to misrepresent anything, having not done the research myself. Does that make sense? But it gives you, again, like I said, it gives you some things to think about, and especially with regard to how psychologists think when it comes to how our psyches work and all the different parts and how they work together. So she goes into, again, how in the story, the Hidalgo represents an aspect of women's psyche that has gone bad. It says it has become corrupt. It derives benefit from its manufacturing of poison. Remember in the second story about the 10-year-old boy, you know, the river was poisoned. And so it says it is somehow tied to unhealthy life. So from there, she kind of expands on all that right there that I was just telling you about, the pollution. And then she talks about how, let me see here what I want to pull from this. What it means to be real. And I thought that was cool because, you know, narcissists are so fake. But she talks about gifted women, even as they reclaim their creative lives, even as beautiful things flow from their hands, they still question themselves, basically. You know, whatever their talents are, writing and painting, she talks about all these different things you can do, that there still is self-doubt, basically. And her point is that it's still real, even if it's not perfect. It's the whole concept of perfectly imperfect, you know, and that's what makes you real and authentic and valuable and unique and rare in this life. And so, you know, embracing that, you know, keeping a growth mindset, but understanding that, you know, we'll never reach perfection. And so she says, real is what has life. And like, for example, a tree that's old is a real living being. So it's still valuable because it's real. And so, yes, it reminds me of that Bible verse, you know, let the dead bury the dead, because it, you know, you look into the eyes of some people and it's almost like there's nothing there. There's no, you can tell that the light isn't present within them. And I mean, as a spiritual person, again, this is just my lens. Feel free to apply your own lens, and I'm just giving you things to think about. But these are my truths. And so I feel like you can either see the light there or the absence of the light there. Make sure I've got my notes handy here. And I think that's crucial when, just a crucial foundation when you're choosing the person that you want to have as your life partner, and recognizing that being equally yoked is many things, but I think at the foundation, you know, you've got to both have the light inside, or it's never going to work, you know. So it says, it is meant to be a strong and direct force. Now this is where she's going back into talking about the animus, represented by the Hildoggo in the story. It is meant to be a strong and direct force, but when there is damage to the animus through all the myriad forces of culture, something weary or mean-spirited, like a narcissist, or a deadness, some call being neutral, which I feel like is just that lack of empathy, like, you know, the robotic presence of a narcissist, interposes itself between the inner world of psyche and the outer world of the blank page. Clear canvas, waiting dance floor, boardroom, gathering. This something, whatever it is, because it's so hard to define, right? Clots the river, clogs thinking, jams the pen and the brush, locks the joints for an interminable period of time, crusts over fresh ideas, and thusly we suffer. So this is the blockage, this force that is like deadened, that is without the light, that it doesn't carry that life force in it whatsoever. And I feel like subjecting ourselves to being around a person like this with this energy inside is going to seep into our psyche in this way, and manifest in this way where we do become stuck. It says there's an odd phenomenon in the psyche. When a woman is afflicted with a negative animus, any effort at a creative act touches it off, so it attacks her. She picks up a pen. The factory on the river spews its poison. She thinks about applying to school or takes a class, but stops in the middle, choking on the lack of inward nourishment and support. A woman revs up, but continuously falls back. There are more unfinished needlework projects, but never realized flower beds. More hikes never taken. More notes never written, just to say I care. More foreign languages never learned. More music lessons abandoned. More weft hanging on the loom, waiting and waiting. So it's that concept of being unfinished. You know, you just, you got to have that life force. It's got to be healthy. You got to have that inspiration, that pep in your step, in your heart, you know. And so, you know, I feel like when everything is healthy, when your environment is healthy and supportive and validating, and you are healed from being subjected to narcissistic people, it's like at that point you're in a flow, you're in a state of flow. And I feel like when people talk about manifesting, I feel like that's kind of in alignment with that conceptually. And it's like you don't have to strive, you know. It's kind of like you're on that narrow path and you're focused, you're aligned with that inner guiding light, and everything's just flowing. It's like you don't have to strive for love. You don't have to strive for any kind of beautiful outcomes. And so I feel like that's a good way to gauge. Not to say life's going to be just smooth sailing, because I mean that's certainly not the case. I think that you know, there's a lot of opportunities for us to learn and grow, and I think that those are challenges placed upon our path, you know, at different points, and those are very important. But in general, you know what I mean? Because if you think about, you know, how being with a narcissist was the opposite feeling of like things are flowing. It's like, no, you can literally feel. To me, the story resonates because having experienced what it's like to be with a narcissistic person, it's the opposite of flow. There is no life force flowing. It's like you almost feel like, you know, you're gonna die. Your spirit's gonna die anyway. So it says, she goes into talking about, I left off reading about how everything's unfinished, all the different unfinished projects. She says, these are the deformed life forms. These are La Llorona's poisoned children, and they are all tossed into the river. They are all tossed back into the polluted waters that so afflicted them to begin with. In the best archetypal circumstances, what is supposed to happen is that they burble around and like a phoenix rise from the ashes in a new form. But here something is wrong with the animus, and therefore the ability to manifest and implement one's ideas in the world. And the river is so filled with the excrement of complexes, nothing can rise from it for new life. And so here's the hard part. We have to go into the sludge and look for it all. Like La Llorona, we have to drag the river for our soul life, for our creative lives. And one more thing, also difficult. We must clean up the river so La Llorona can see, so she and we can find the souls of the children and be at peace to create again. So yeah, I agree with that. Peace is like if you're worried about your safety, it's like you're going to stay hypervigilant, all the time, and in that kind of mode, and that's no way to live. So you've got to get yourself to a place of safety, a place of peace, as a baseline, as a foundation, so that you can even think straight. I like her description here. She says, when there's a problem, it says their animus is sucking all the oxygen out of the river. And so here's some descriptive factors. She says, so we feel extremely tired and suffer tremendous loss of energy, can't seem to get going, and feel held back by something, but it's hard to define, So again, it's mostly a loss of motivation. And, I feel like when things are cleaned, when we get rid of the pollution and we do the work to clear the waters, then it's like you're going to gain through the experience. Even though it was awful, it was horrible, and it's a blessing and a curse, you know what I'm saying? But as you work through everything and understand it's packed full of huge and deep lessons to help you gain clarity and wisdom like nothing else, then it's like you can take these new understandings and enrich yourself with them. And I truly believe, from my experience too, that you're going to come to a place of peace, of just a good baseline where you're in balance again. And it's going to be hard not to smile. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, life again is not always going to be smooth sailing, but you're just going to have that knowing inside of you, that just brings you, this happiness that's all your own, and only meant to be shared with your kind, with those you're truly equally yoked with. In particular, that one. And so, I feel like, you'll be able to identify your own kind so much better after you know what love isn't, after you know what is very unhealthy, after when you can see outwardly this corrupted logo, when you can see it outwardly. I think that's what catapults us into our own dark night of the soul and ego death, because it's like we can see, pieces and parts of our own psyche that, were corrupted through these experiences. And so anything that was already a little bit out of balance before these experiences, I feel like it's just gonna, if you take this as an opportunity to heal, it's an opportunity to heal all of it and to be restored. Does that make sense? And so I just view all of this as an opportunity. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of that old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And because it is that difficult. And a lot of people are not going to understand unless they've been through it. So I just hope that this has inspired you. I hope that it's got the wheels turning. And I just hope that you're having a beautiful day. and I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for walking this path with me, and for all your likes and your comments, your thoughts, your prayers, and it's right back at you. So just know that. And you know, as we are healing from these experiences, and the animus, the man on the river within our own psyche, is healthy and functioning properly again, and at that point we can see things through to completion. And that's a beautiful thing, because for so many reasons, because a lot of times those blessings, those treasures are at the end. And so, you know, you want to be able to you know, be steadfast and hang with it and see something through to completion. And so again, I just thank you, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you very soon.